Welcome to Electric Lawn Talk. Each week, the electric lawn care professionals get together to talk about the electric lawn and landscape business and have some fun along the way. Whether you are in the business, thinking of getting started, or just want to hear the tips, tricks, struggles, and victories of the move to electric, you are in the right place. Let's get started.
Welcome. Electric Lawn Talk. Stephen here with EcoMow Lawn and Landscape Solutions in Dallas, Texas. Got a full house. Jake with the Green Team Denver. Hello, sir. Got Sean with Luminary Lawns up in Maryland. Mr. Dan Cienfuegos with Electrawn down in Florida. Jarmar, my man. Houston, Texas. Peaceful Lawn and Garden. Gerhart, Sustainable Lawn Care Services. Good evening, gentlemen. So I read a quote, Jake. I want to circle back to what we were talking about earlier. The quote that I read is, "Do one thing every day that scares you," by Eleanor Roosevelt.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just getting into the fact that last season I got out of my comfort zone quite a bit. I uh, had a new business partner last season, 2022, basically doubled our client base from, I think the previous season I was at maybe 2 employees, and we went to 6 employees. So it was definitely out of my comfort zone in a lot of ways. We did a lot more landscaping, and basically just with that getting out of the comfort zone, we had a lot of growth. But then at the start of 2023, the business partnership kind of went south, didn't end up working out. And so what I've noticed is that was a little bit of an excuse for me to kind of run back to my comfort zone. And I'm kind of recognizing that right now. And there's pros and cons of that. I mean, my goal of 2023 was to kind of circle back and focus on being profitable. And I think that I was pretty successful in doing that. So I'm pretty happy with that. But I am recognizing right now that I was definitely in my comfort zone. I wasn't doing things that scared me on a daily basis, probably not even on a monthly basis. And so that's definitely something over the winter that I'm going to reflect on a lot and kind of focus on how can I do some things that get me. I don't know if I totally, no offense, Eleanor Roosevelt, I don't know if I totally like or agree with doing things that scare you or put you in your panic zone, but
Yeah.
that stretch zone that's between the comfort zone and the panic zone is what I've found to really be the sweet spot. So I'm going to really focus on and think about over the winter, how can I continually put myself in that stretch zone and continue to grow going into 2024?
So, Sean.
I'm always panicking. I don't. We're always pushing, man. There's always a backup plan, right? So like if things don't work out, we always have a backup and we can work around. But we're pushing, we're flying by the seat of our pants and trying to push us in every direction, in every way. Whether it's the equipment, the the jobs we take on, I don't know. I love that quote. That's how I got here, right? I was an accountant. I was sitting in an office every day. It's about as comfortable as you can be, and I couldn't stand it. So I roundabout way went through a variety of different career channels to get here, but always just trying to push outside of the comfort zone.
And you're glad you landed here?
I love it.
Yeah. Why?
I've always wanted to start and run a business as far back as I can remember. I didn't know what it was that I wanted to do. I had to go through the things that I did to learn, the variety of skills that I need to run this business. I picked up those in some odd places along the way, but it's something I'm passionate about, and now I get to own my own business around it as well.
Gerhart, you're always pushing your comfort zone, right?
Yes, causes a lot of stress, but it's fun, right? I've always been a huge fan of change. I don't really like to be stagnant, to be doing the same thing. The place I worked at, was the last place I worked for someone else. One of the biggest things that they had kept, repeating to us is never be complacent. If you're not complacent, you're always pushing for more, always pushing to do better, and that's scary. I'm actually pretty scared for next year. I'm scared of how growth will look for sustainable. Definitely terrified of hiring again. I was not in the right place to do so at the beginning of this year, so it was very costly. And being that I went through that, which was scary enough, now I'm going to have to go through it again, knowing that could happen again. I don't think so, but that experience is there, which is definitely scary. And the experience that again, referencing to the previous company I'd worked for, I've seen a lot of turnover. A lot of the people who come into this industry, especially people green, not really knowing much, first job, and I've seen the way they act when working for companies. This is my livelihood. This is like everything to me.
Yeah.
Terrifies me to pass that along to someone else. So yeah, I mean, I think if you're not doing something that scares you, if you're not really growing. So I mean, maybe not every day, because that fight or flight is not a sustainable feeling.
Yeah.
I mean, this whole thing is scary.
I read a quote today, Gary Vaynerchuk. I think the guy's just got some great quotes. It was something along the lines of you become a great leader when you let someone else take control. I'm looking forward to the day whenever somebody comes into your business that has the same level of passion that you do, and it'd be a kind of a beneficial relationship for you guys to grow your business.
I'm looking forward to that day too.
Yeah. I mean, we're on the hunt. Dan, what's on your mind, man? You're always pushing your comfort zone. You've got lost a lot of weight. Looks like you're running marathons now. How are you feeling about your comfort zone?
I'm kind of weird about it, I guess. I don't, in some aspects, I push myself, and in some other aspects, don't really push it. So for instance, when I put a goal in front of me, then I'll be in uncomfortable zones, no problem. But if I don't have a goal, if I don't have anything I'm looking to go to, and I have nothing about it, I don't go into uncomfortable situations or anything uncomfortable, because I don't see a finish line. I don't see a target. So it's nothing that I guess I can care less for it. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. So it all just depends on where I focus my attention to, good or bad. But if I focus on something, it normally will get done.
Mm-hmm.
But I like the quote. I like big goals. I'm trying to come up with goals for 2024, and I'm trying to like bring them more to, I guess, reasonable. But like mentally, like I see a goal and I'm like, I want to go for the biggest number I can go for that I know is a stretch, and then put that as my target. And then once I have that as a target, I push forward to that. But that's one of the things that I have, just like I did in my weight loss. I think I could share with you guys here on the Discord. I put a goal, I put a deadline, and I went for it.
Yeah.
Kind of like what Steven has been doing. You have a revenue goal for your company, you're trying to shoot for it,
Yeah.
and whatever it is to get there, whatever it is, if that's painting a fence or taking down a fence, that's taking down a fence, or putting up a new roof, that's putting up a new roof. I want to hit that goal, whatever it has to be.
Yeah. Sean was talking about that before we came on air. He was talking about the winter time. I'm going to do whatever it takes,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
To keep everybody working. Okay, I got a question for you. I've got a question for the group. This can be a rapid fire deal for you, and I'm going to
Wait,
hit.
hold
Yes,
on,
sir.
Steven. We
Yes, sir.
missed you.
Oh,
I feel like definitely are out of your comfort zone a fair amount.
I
So,
am.
what are your thoughts on this quote?
Like I said, I mean, it resonated with me from the moment I read it. And, having been in sales my entire life for 30 years, I've felt like I've always kind of been outside of my comfort zone. Occasionally I can slip back into the everyday. And when I read that quote, I realized I was like, my gosh, you need to make sure that this is something that's on your mind more often. You need to have this front and center. You need to remind yourself more that you need to be outside of your comfort zone if you're going to continue to grow this business and achieve the goals that you want to have. So it was just a great reminder for me. And I know we've all got stretch goals in front of us and we're all entrepreneurs. Every one of us. We're all still here this many years later together. I'm glad to see it. It's been a lot of fun to watch and I know we're all outside of our comfort zones. Every one of us. I'm glad that we have the support of each other, when we're in the middle of it. So yeah, that's where I'm at, Jake.
Amen.
Amen, my friend. So I got a question for you, Jake, while I have you. Something that came to my mind earlier in the week. Who is your ideal client?
Oh man, that's such a great question. Ooh, got me on the spot here for sure, but I got this. So my ideal client is going to be somebody who values their time more than the money that they're needing to pay for the lawn care, landscaping, and things that we offer. Somebody that's not price sensitive and somebody that truly appreciates and takes pride in their lawn and their landscape. Another easy way to answer this question is saying who is not our ideal client. And that is somebody who is just trying to keep the city off their butt or trying to keep the HOA from, fining them. Those people don't really interest me because they're going to be more price sensitive. They're not going to really truly appreciate the hard work that you're putting into their property. We provide a premium service, and that's how we want to be recognized. And that's quite honestly the price that we charge. And so it's not just Joe Schmo that just wants their lawn cut, every 2 to 3 weeks that we're servicing. We're servicing the people that have the nicest lawn in the neighborhood. We're servicing the people that are wanting to get creative with their landscaping. Yeah, that I think for on the spot, that's about what I got for our ideal client.
How do you figure out that they're not going to be a good fit for you? Do you go to the meeting? Do you look at their address? How do you assess a client?
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't necessarily weed out the client. I let them weed themselves out.
Okay.
Basically, I I kind of say, hey, this is the box that we are of services that we provide. And so, for an example, we provide full service lawn care. So that's everything from aeration, fertilization, sprinkler work, weekly mowing, um, soil conditioner treatments, overseeding, everything. And a lot of times, what I mean by a client weeding themselves out is they'll say, "Oh, well, we're just interested in biweekly mowing."
Mm-hmm.
I said, "Oh, okay. Well, we don't offer that. Grass, Kentucky bluegrass actually likes to be cut and reacts positively to being cut. We try not to cut off more than 1/3 of the grass height per visit. And with biweekly mowing, we're not able to abide by those standards that we have set." And so we explain, we educate the customer. And then if they're being insistent on, I know my grass, I just really don't need biweekly, or I just really don't need weekly mowing. We said, yeah, it sounds like we may not be the right fit for you,
Mm-hmm.
another lawn care company. And then it's really interesting because they're not used to that. They're used to trying to be sold. They're used to, companies being like, oh yeah, no, okay, yeah, we can do
Yeah.
that. And it's kind of disarming, and they kind of catches them off guard sometimes, and they're like, "Oh, well, no, 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 like it's not over. Like we could maybe make this work. Like maybe tell me more, you
Uh-huh.
know?" And honestly, that's the response we get a lot. And so then I continue on with the spiel of, okay, we do 5 fertilizations throughout the season, and they go, "Oh, I normally only do 2." And I go, "Okay, well, we use organic fertilizer, so it isn't quite as high in nitrogen. It provides more of a sustained growth rather than quick hits of growth." And really what we found is just educating the customer. We put the onus on them to decide, yeah, this sounds really awesome. This sounds like I sign up day one, I put my credit card on file, and then from there it's hands off. That sounds awesome. That's what I want.
Yeah.
And then for other customers, they can't get over the fact that they don't need weekly mowing. And then I recommend them to another company that I have in my back pocket that I know does bi-weekly mowing. And, I always kind of try to just foster that relationship, even if they don't end up going with us, because guess what? I do get from them. I get their email address, their phone number, and a lot of times their home address and first and last name.
Yeah.
And where does that go? Directly into the CRM.
Mm-hmm.
And then what do they get 3 times a year? Spring, summer, and fall. They get our spring services, our summer services, and our fall services of what we're doing at that time. And a lot of times we'll get hired by people like that for one-off services, maybe a gutter clean, maybe a bush trim. They don't want us for mowing, but they want us to come out and aerate in the spring.
Mm-hmm.
So sorry, that was a super long-winded answer, but
Yeah, it's a great answer. And I think about Jamar too, because that's kind of Jamar's he's all about the takeaway business. He's always like, "Well, we're not a good fit for you." And then the
yeah,
client's like, "Oh, wait, well, yes, you are. Yes, you are." Uh,
right. All of a sudden they
yeah,
become the salesperson. It's like,
yeah,
why should I accept you as a client?
exactly,
Yep.
exactly. I get it, man. I love that. I love that feeling too in business where you say to a prospect, "I just don't think we're going to be a good fit for you."
Yeah,
in the be
it's
in the
very
beginning,
freeing,
it is
honestly.
a very freeing feeling.
And I was gonna mention to you earlier, Stephen. I just mentioned that I do try to capture that the phone number, the email address, all that stuff, and input it in the CRM. And earlier offline here, we were talking about organic marketing and all those different words for basically marketing for free.
Yeah.
I just sent out an email campaign 2 days ago because I was like, "Ooh, my fall, we're done mowing and everything now." And I was like, "Ooh, my fall's looking a little light. So I need to, kind of fill it back up with one-off services." So I sent out an email campaign, and I thought that I was at like 300 some emails and stuff and customers, but I realized that I had 650 customers in my email base. And I sent out one email, and with one email, I filled up 2 weeks of services.
That's incredible.
Yeah, and I did the math on that. It was a 2% return, like reply rate, like
Uh-huh.
conversion rate, I guess you'd call it.
Yeah.
2%. But that's like, well, and I'm solo right now. So, I mean, take that for what it's worth.
Uh-huh.
So it's just one man, but I filled up 2 weeks worth of services off of one email.
What were the services?
Leaf cleanup, tree pruning, bush trimming, aeration and fertilizer, and gutter cleaning.
Okay.
Yep. So that's kind of the fall services that we do November and December.
Uh-huh. Sean, who's your ideal client?
Ideal client for us, I guess there's a couple different ways you can look at that. From just a property size perspective for our mowing customers, we're looking at a quarter acre of actual grass or less, ideally an eighth or less. That's really our sweet spot. We do a ton of like townhouses and just small single family homes in little neighborhoods, stuff that we can knock out pretty quick, but still do a great job, and everybody wants the property to look good, especially when you've got a bunch of neighbors trying to compete next to you. So we want to help people get the best property on the neighborhood. Ideally, it's somebody that's using multiple of our services. So looking for fertilization and for mowing, and then any garden maintenance and anything along those lines. We target a couple of different age groups. Like, we kind of segment people out into a couple of different varieties for our marketing, but that's kind of what they all have in common as a core characteristics. Mostly is the size and trying to get, they want it to look good, and using multiple of our services to achieve that.
So our ideal client, I'll pipe in here. Our ideal client is somebody that has a card on file, B, follows Jake's philosophy of they just want shit taken care of, and are on a monthly plan with us where we provide their weekly service 40 weeks out of the year, and then bi-weekly the other 12 weeks or whatever it is. A minimum twice annual fertilization, and they're on our mosquito fogging package during the summertime, and they don't mind paying that bill every month. And the reason I ask you that is, and Sean, I want to direct this question to you because I think it's obviously something that we all talk about, and it's certainly not anything taboo, but who is not your ideal client?
I mean, I think it's pretty similar to what Jake said. The person that is just trying to get their lawn in a position that won't get them fined by the HOA or in trouble with the county. And that seems ridiculous, but we get a lot of those requests, right? Like, we get people that just call in and want their lawn mowed, and they want the cheapest thing possible. And so we do try to feel that out pretty quickly, so we're not wasting a whole bunch of time. And really, that just comes down to a quick turnaround process on our end, as we standardize the quoting process more and more, as quickly as we can get that back to them, get them a price, measure out their property digitally, that they'll move right along. when they see the cost. And it's just because we are not going to be the cheapest service. We're I'm not going to say we're the most expensive service either, but we provide a good value for what we do charge. But it's somebody that's just wants their lawn mowed and doesn't care what it looks like, as long as they're not getting in trouble. That's a too high of a percentage of the population, it seems, but that's definitely not our ideal client.
I want to bolt onto that because we recently we have taken on some pretty nice clients, like nice properties. They're very well groomed and maintained, these mature, established neighborhoods, bigger homes, 1 to 2 acre properties. And it's a lot of work for our crew. We're not a very big company. So we have to basically carve out half of our day with at least one crew to go out there and make sure that everything just looks pristine when we leave. It's such a cool thing, man, to see these beautiful, well groomed lawns and gardens, and they're established, and everything's just absolutely gorgeous. And it's this big property. It's incredibly rewarding. And as a business, as we've continued to grow as a company, EcoMow here in Dallas, I'm just gravitating towards that right now. We've gotten good. We've taken on some clients in the past that were clients that we probably didn't have the capacity or the knowledge to service. So we did kind of an okay job. But now we've built up our business to a point where we know what we're doing, and we provide a good quality service. And it's so cool to go out to some of these places and walk around on these properties that we've been servicing for several months now, 6 months even, since the beginning of the year, and just walk around and just look at how beautiful it is, you know? And those are the clients for us. They don't mind paying the bill to make sure that everything's taken care of. If there's something you want to suggest, a service that they need, if it's a planting, or it's like, hey, we need to remulch the property, all of the beds on the property. And they're like, sure, do it. and they just don't bat an eye at it, right? I mean, obviously everybody's cost sensitive to a certain degree, but they want their place looking nice. And when you can provide that service where you can deliver what it is that they want, you get paid for doing the job and you get to enjoy in how beautiful it is after you've done the job. It's incredibly rewarding. Jake, maybe I'll bolt on to maybe that is my ideal client. Maybe that's EcoMo's ideal client in the future. I'd rather have 60 clients on these premium packages versus, 500 customers that are paying that $45 a week. Now, granted, they all need service, but I like this premium service. Dan, you know how to deliver a premium service. You guys did a really cool video on your Instagram where you were showing the installation, and there's a drone shot that is on your sign in the yard in the daytime, and the drone starts pulling away from the shot, and then it transitions like halfway through to dark time, and you can see the lights all on the house. It was very creative
Yes, yeah,
editing.
yeah. The person that did it hooked Ronnie up. But yeah, I don't know. I think Ronnie was asking if we can get a drone, but after we were looking at some of them, they were pretty pricey.
I told him, man, just we've got we have the DJI Mavic Mini SE, which is an older version, and the DJI Mavic Mini 2, which is not a whole lot better than the Mini SE. I think they're like about $300.
Oh, the ones we looked at were like 6 to 1,000.
Yeah, he's looking at that high end stuff. The Mavic Mini SE is completely suitable. You just attach your iPhone to it with a little plug. It's got the little fold out handle, where you can hook your phone up to it. You download the app, the DJI app. It'll do everything you need it to do. Now, it doesn't have avoidance control, the cheaper ones, and that means that it won't detect if there's an obstacle in the way. So the likelihood of crashing it is greater.
Yeah. Yeah, no, we haven't. It's definitely something we might be doing. We might have to hire someone for some better pictures for 2024 because the way we want to move, it's got to get in that premium
Yeah.
feel and look to everybody. So our website with higher quality images, brand perception, making sure that our brand is out there.
Yeah.
We got new shirts made. We got our branding's trying to continue pushing the branding so people can see it because I want the leads coming in without us doing too much effort going to look for the leads.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have some projections in mind, and also trying to find methods of distributing marketing materials so we can make sure we get the phones to ring. And then, like I spoke about in the last podcast, having systems to be the first to answer them, so we can be the first to get them in the door.
I will say to circle back around on the drones thing, we actually got a drone for marketing purposes. Probably brought this up before. And it was really about just taking some cool shots of, the guys working, and everybody loves drone shots, right? So we got it as a marketing tool. And as I'm flying this drone around for the first time, I've got some previous experience flying drones. I've always been something I've loved doing. I was flying this drone over this house, and all I saw this big pile of leaves in a corner of the roof as I'm flying the drone over. And it just triggered in my sales mind. My sales brain was like, "Oh, wait a second. There's a pile of leaves on the roof that we didn't know about on the ground. Maybe I could sell this to the client and just say, hey, and maybe I should send a picture to the client of the roof and show these leaves and say, hey, we were just flying a drone over the house and we realized you got this giant pile of leaves. For $65, we can add it to our next visit, and the guys can go up there and blow those leaves off." And guess what they said?
Do it.
Do it. And
That's brilliant.
immediately I'm like, oh my gosh, this is not only a marketing tool, but this has actually become like a tool for our business, like an employee.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Your sales
Hi,
guy.
that's Steven.
So that was the plan from then on. It was keep a drone on the vehicle.
What's the range on that drone? Can I sit on my couch and
Yeah.
send it around the neighborhood?
Yeah, I mean, I've done it. I've actually flown the drone from my couch to job sites before. Now it'll do about 3 miles, but I mean, if there's a landscape project that's around, if I'm working at home and I want to go check out the site, I mean, it's a lot of fun to just fly the drone over there, fly it over the house, and then fly it down, and they see it and they'll turn around and like wave up at it, and then to answer your question, Sean, with most of them, they're about 2 to 3 miles of range. Obviously, the more money you spend, the range becomes further, 8 to 10 miles, or what have you. But yeah, you just put your
That's our
iPhone.
whole market.
Yeah, exactly. But it's an incredible tool, and it's very, very useful, dude. I think we generated
Is
close to
is there any
10K.
way to is there any way to overlay mapping on any of these on the iPhones so you can I'm curious really as a sales tool, would you be able to use that to do sales calls to visit properties? Because our whole service area is 5 miles. If I go
Yeah.
to I don't have to get in the car. I can just literally fly around the neighborhood and look at properties.
Yeah, I mean, you absolutely can. I mean, ideally, yes, you would think you could probably get that done with Google Maps, but if the data is old and you just wanted to kind of send a drone over there, I'm sure you can. I think it all comes down to the price of the drone, right? So, I mean, I know that a lot of roofing companies are using drones now with infrared cameras that are fitted on them. So they're going to the property, they're flying the drone over, and they can see the weaknesses in the areas of the shingles, et cetera, with using the infrared and all that kind of stuff, and tell what the hot spots are and whatever. But yeah, I mean, you can either fly the drone over from your location or be on location and fly the drone over the property, and it provides some pretty accurate measurements. I mean, they definitely make our jobs easier, and it's already a great sales tool. So we generated almost $10,000 worth of business once we discovered that this was a tool for us to see roofs and gutters, because we do a lot of gutter cleanouts too. When we get all the leaves, you get the buildup in there, and you don't really know what's in the gutters, right? You typically have to take a ladder out and kind of change your everyday routine to go look in these gutters and all this stuff. But if you've just got a drone on the vehicle, you can. It doesn't take 2 minutes to pull that thing out and fly it up over and take a shot at somebody's gutters. And I mean, our gutter cleanouts are typically, 80 to $100 in most cases. It takes us about 20 minutes to do them. It's an asset for your business.
Steven, where I thought you were going with that, Mr. Salesman over there, was you just walking through the neighborhood to even non-client houses and flying that drone over and seeing those leaves up there and then going and knocking on the door.
Yeah.
Um, you know what I mean? I mean, talk about a conversion tool.
Put a printer in the car and just print out little
You
door
could have a
hangers as you
mobile
go along.
command center.
Yeah. I mean, you could, as
This
long
is,
as people didn't feel like it was too invasive, right? You flying a drone over their home.
for
Um,
sure.
and to circle back on that, we're in one of those zones, right? So we're so close to Love Field Airport here that I actually have to get a FAA, clearance to fly the drone in a specific area. So you have to go into your DJI app and you have to apply for clearance. Otherwise, the drone won't fly. Right? The drone won't even lift off the ground. If you in our area, if you just go up to some random house, your drone won't even fly because of what the circuitry that's built into it that says you're in a no-fly zone, right? The FAA has control over these things. So you have to apply for like a special permit. You get that in about 10 minutes, right? You go, okay, I go to this property and you can put in the specific address of where you're at. You can request clearance for an area, but you have to say, okay, I'm only going to fly this drone up to 50 feet or 100 feet. And you can draw a circle around the area where you're going to fly this drone, and then you submit that to the app. Well, the app then gives you clearance and your drone gets updated, and then you can fly the drone in this space. Here's what's interesting. Once you get the drone airborne in your area of clearance, you can't go outside that boundary area. Your drone will not fly outside the boundary area. It will actually stop at the zone that you've drawn in your app that says this is where you want to fly. Isn't that incredible?
That's wild. Yeah. I mean, and that's super applicable for me because I'm like half a mile from an Air Force base.
Yeah.
So I can't even imagine. I wonder if I can even fly one around here.
You absolutely can. You just have to put in
Okay.
you just have to put in the addresses. Maybe you do it a day before where you go, okay, I'm
Sure.
gonna, and you can designate a range of dates, right? And I think you can do up to 28 dates or 28 days where you can have
Okay.
continuous clearance for 28 days. If you're, and you have to put a reason in why you're doing this, right? And ours is
Right.
typically landscape installation assessment or roof cleaning assessment, da 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 da. So yes, you will need that.
Man.
It's an incredible tool.
Yeah. And I mean, for nerds like us, learning another optimization tool, right? We're always thinking about how we can optimize our business through CRM equipment. This is something that I bet a lot of companies have. I know some companies have thought of it, but a lot have not thought of this.
Well, and I
That's
think
awesome.
most just use it for marketing purposes.
Right. Exactly.
I mean, that obviously makes you money, but when you can have a drone on every vehicle that you have and they just fly it over and send a pic to headquarters, we can send a
Yeah.
quick quote over to the client going, hey, set the drone over your house. You need these areas clean, these gutters done. We can do it on the
Yeah.
next visit. It'll be an extra $180. And they're like, do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have a question for the group? So basically, like my question is, what is the current like status of like legislation around electric outdoor power equipment where you live? Whether you want to talk specifically about your city that you live in or your state, and because I feel like I don't think that we've talked about it on the podcast, but I feel like we've had a lot of movement. Um, in a lot of where we live as far as outdoor power equipment, whether it being bans, whether it being tax incentives and everything. So, Stephen, you had mentioned that you had some stuff going on in Texas, didn't you?
We did. I believe there is a sweep going on across the nation. I know the guys down in Houston had it too. We did a piece with Environment Texas. I believe they're tied to Environment America. Some studies that had just been released, some data around emissions, carbon, etc. And it was brought to my attention a few weeks ago. We were approached by Environment Texas about hosting them with some Dallas City Council members to give a presentation on this data. The good folks from Steel joined us. They came down from McKinney, Texas, and brought some of their equipment out to demo. The folks from Oso Electric also came out. I brought one of their mowers out. And it's kind of been a pretty silent topic around here for a long period of time. And I think you bring up a good point that there's definitely some movement happening, and it seems like it's nationwide. Um, obviously, what began in California has certainly migrated its way across the states to the rest of us, and it's starting at the city level with us. It's not starting with the smaller businesses that are out there. It's not the mom and pops and the small companies like we are. This is at the forefront of what's going on in the city. And the city committees are the ones that are going to be bringing in all of this battery powered equipment, and they have a timeline in place, and they're not bending. Everything has to be, the city will fully make the transition to battery power by 2030. Now, starting in 2026 to 2027, they will be utilizing all battery powered hand tools. And then in such case that, the mowers are capable for what the city needs, that target deadline is 2030, and it's happening, and they're leading the charge. So it's loud here right now in Dallas around that. As a company, we're sitting in the catbird seat, right? We are one of the few companies that are here in Dallas that do what we do. And people want to hear from us because we service 300 properties that are here. Now, granted, most of them are residential, but we've got a lot of insight on client satisfaction, the customers, why they're satisfied with the service we provide. We're able to share data around employee satisfaction. We've got boots on the ground, and we all do. Every one of us, guys. I mean, we are all sitting in the catbird seat because we're not necessarily the early adopters. I mean, we're the pioneers. And long-winded answer your question, Jake. I mean, it's all the talk here in Dallas right now.
That's awesome to hear. We're right in there in the passenger seat with you, actually, here in Denver, and it's actually kind of snuck up on me. I'm not going to lie. Feel a tiny bit ignorant for not, being more abreast of what's going on right here in Denver. But we are doing the same thing at the city level by 2025. No more gas power.
2025.
Yeah, at the city level, like government level. And then by 2026, so they're really not given much time, all commercial lawn care and landscaping. Well, so lawn care, not like skid steers and stuff like that, but lawn care maintenance companies need to be fully electric
By 2026, you said?
by 2026. Yeah. And so you mentioned, how Texas is following California. I feel like Denver is like on its heels. And with that, I'll just share this, that they did pass a bill. The name of the bill is SB 23016, greenhouse gas emission reduction measures. And basically, section 12 of it reads, a state income tax credit in an amount equal to 33% of purchase price for new electric powered lawn equipment for purchases made in income tax years 2024 through 2026. A seller of new electric powered lawn equipment that registers with the Department of Revenue as a qualified retailer and demonstrates that it provided a 30% discount from the purchase price of new electric powered lawn equipment may claim the tax credit and may retain the credit allowed. So basically, layman's terms is a retailer, just we'll say, for example, like a Home Depot, if they become a qualified retailer for this 33% tax credit, they then discount all of their electric equipment by 30% off the shelves. So at checkout, it's 30% less. And this is for 2024 through 2026. So obviously this is...
I'm coming to Denver and gonna bring a big
van. What do you guys need? I'll load up the trailer. Come on out. But my big question is, so if we're talking about these like stand-on mowers or like zero-turn mowers, these big mowers that also qualify for the federal tax credit, we're looking at taking 30% off through the state. And then, Dan, I know you're pretty good at that federal tax credit. Was it also 30%?
30% up to $7,500.
Right. So if we're talking about like a Greenworks stand-on, taking 30% off from the retailer here in Colorado, and then an additional 30%.
14,000 to start with, and then you're taking off.
Well, I think California has something similar where they're taking a double credit, right? So I think if I want to be honest, I think that's why the prices are so high.
Yes. So I think you're absolutely right.
So if it's a $40,000 mower, you get a tax credit of, I don't know, 33% or $7,500 and a $7,500 tax credit in your state. That's $15,000 off the price of the mower. So
for some companies, right? But I don't feel like all companies are doing that.
Yeah, some people want to get in. Their pricing is a little cheaper than that.
Do you feel like Greenworks is doing that?
Greenworks is reducing the size of their batteries, so that's how they're getting away with it. So
Oh.
like the stand-ons are 8 kilowatts. If you go get a mean green mower, I think that one's 21 kilowatts.
It's like a
Gotcha.
bag of chips,
And then
man.
if
You know, you
you
get a bag of chips and there's like no chips in it.
yeah,
Or Oreos?
yeah,
They're putting like 3 less Oreos in a pack these days.
yeah.
21 kilowatts seems like overkill though. I got
It
14
is.
on my mean green, and I ran it all day today, and I got 40% left. Like,
Yeah,
There's
no.
no such thing as overkill on battery power, Sean.
But it might be for these guys that are cutting big, tall grass or whatever they're called, all day. That's what they
yeah.
sell it as, right? An all day mower, which is great. But
I guess if you're running commercial spaces, you're not driving from property to property. You're literally just running this thing straight.
exactly. So if you got down to 40% in a commercial environment, that mower would have been shut off. Because you probably
Okay.
only ran it for, I'm gonna take a guess, 3 hours to 4 hours max today.
No, we were running it. So I was only mowing today, and somebody else was doing all the string trimming and blowing. So take out drive time, but a full day.
Yeah. So what was that in mowing?
Otherwise, we're getting towards the end of the year. It was a little lighter, so maybe like 6 hours of mowing.
Man, it's a lot of hours of mowing. We don't ever put 6 hours of mowing on our mowers in a day, especially in our properties are pretty small. So we're typically putting in like 2 to 3 hours of mowing a day.
All right, I hate to cut off your nerdy mower talk, but I'm gonna bring us back to like the legislation that we're talking about. So I think you answered my question, Dan. It's basically a double tax credit. So that's pretty awesome. Like I said, let me know what you guys need.
I don't know if it's awesome because we're still paying for it.
We are, but that's for another podcast.
We are.
We're not going to get into
I was
taxation.
just saying we're still paying for it. At the end of the day, still someone's paying for it.
I just want to know if anybody else has any legislation going on.
In Maryland, there's nothing really around my immediate area, but Montgomery County, I know where William is. I think that report that Stephen was talking about earlier, they actually mentioned MoCo, Montgomery County in there. I think they were like one of the top 25 counties for emissions from lawn care in the country. And I know they've put in a ton of regulations, a bunch of changes coming up, being mandated down there. The rest of Maryland, though, I haven't seen anything.
That's what's got me wondering. I'm like, they're going to put all these regulations in place and all these things, but I mean, how are they really going to enforce it? First of all, are they going to enforce it? And then how are they going to do it?
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be prioritized, right?
The noise police. So I've actually heard people talk about it, and I forget what it was for, but there were people going around with decibel readers, and you would get a fine if you were above that. And I think it would be some of the quieter communities, 55 plus, like the gas guys could only run the blowers at like half speed
Yeah.
certain times, and like they would literally get a fine from someone with a decibel reader, which also kind of makes me concerned because I found that the higher power electric stuff, while the sound does not resonate, that super recycler's got some volume to it.
Oh
When you're
man, you're
operating
not
it
so
right
quiet.
there. Yeah, and the steel, the combi unit string trimmer. I mean, that thing has got some volume to it too.
Yeah.
But again, none of these things carry. You're not
Well,
going to hear it.
I
a
would
block
say
away.
the volume doesn't the sound doesn't travel, right? The vibrations of the sound are not as intense. And so like when you're using the unit, it still sounds loud, but if you actually compare it to a gas unit, it's totally different realm. And when you stand 10, 20, 30 feet away from the machine, the amount of decreased volume you actually perceive in your ears, it just keeps compounding the further out you get from it. So I mean, we have, even though it's super recycler, like it sounds like it's running and it's spinning full force blades underneath there, right? Like that's creating a lot of wind force and a lot of sound when you're right on the machine and you're pushing it. But you go around the corner of the house and you can't even hear that there's somebody mowing a lawn. Where if it was the same thing in a gas machine, you could be down the street.
I will say also tagging along, Montgomery County, Pennsylvania, we were also invited out for the press release of Penn Environment for their report. So Montgomery County, Pennsylvania has the highest emissions in the state from gas-powered lawn equipment, and we are 20th in the nation. So we were asked to speak of our commercial use experience at that press release, and I was just so excited to share how really wonderful it is to use the equipment itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys don't have to be as mechanically inclined either. Push to start or choke it or whatever.
You just hit the button. Just pull up, hit the button. Everything works the way it should.
You hold the button for 5 seconds. If that doesn't work, you bounce it off a wall.
Steven, I've got a question for you.
Yes, sir. I'm all yours.
All right. This is a serious question. We've got a lot of legislation being passed and everything, and obviously these gasser guys are pretty resistant to it. In like our local newspaper and stuff here in Denver, one of the gas companies was stated saying basically it will make us go bankrupt. This is a company that's been around for like 30 years. It will make us go bankrupt if you make it like if we're forced to switch to battery operated. I think that's obviously a little bit dramatic, but what are your thoughts and feelings about like, especially some of these shorter timelines, making these gas guys switch over to electric? Because I know you've stated in prior podcasts, we're all just kind of out here trying to make a living, pay our bills, feed our families, and we're all just doing it the best way we know how. So with all that said, what are your thoughts on making these gas guys switch over?
I think that ultimately they're not going to have a choice, right, when the time comes, because equipment manufacturers aren't going to be making that stuff anymore, particularly with the hand tools. Any retail store now, I mean, 75 to 80% of their products that they have on the shelves are battery powered. So
If it's happening naturally, do you see a need for the legislation, or do you think the legislation's overkill?
I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say that it's overkill. I think the late adopters they're going to be just fine. They're going to hold out as long as as long as they have to. You know, every one of these manufacturers is just going to be manufacturing electric equipment in 10 years' time anyway. It's just a matter of time. Granted, I think that it can be a little bit aggressive for organizations to step in and force their hand. I'm not one of the opinion that everybody needs to be able to have the opportunity to put food on their table. And we all most of us drive gasoline vehicles to and from work, and we are consumers of gasoline products. And to force somebody's hand into using a specific tool because it supports your initiative could be a little bit premature at this point. The equipment's not where it needs to be for companies such as the one you referenced earlier to be productive and to be able to provide the services that they need to provide to be sustainable and to fulfill a need of the people. But ultimately, technology, we've seen it, guys. We've seen it in the previous 2 to 3 years how far technology's advanced. We see it every year at Equip, and when we go there, there's always something brand new that's super incredible and even better than the year before. And this is only in 2 and 3 years time frame. If we're looking 7 years down the road, guys, I mean, we all know that all of these manufacturers are going to have equipment. We're not going to be having this conversation, is what I'm trying to say. In 10 years' time, we're not going to be having the conversation around is gas better than electric or is electric better than gas, because everybody's going to be using electric anyway. It's going to be a new conversation. And that's my opinion on that. I get it. A company such as the one you referenced earlier is not going to be able to make their margins. And if their hand was forced, they're going to go out of business. Maybe there's a good chance that's true. I don't know, because we are a 100% battery operated company, with the exception of, when we use skid steers and dingoes and larger earth moving type machines.
I've noticed something here recently. The first state really to push forth any major new laws about any of this was California. But my understanding of their law is that they put a deadline on not being able to purchase any additional gas equipment, right? It wasn't necessarily on what you use, but it's you couldn't buy any new stuff in. Where a lot of the stuff that I've seen from more recent states has been deadlines on using the equipment. And from an environmentalist, I understand the reasoning behind that, right? We want to try and eliminate the gas equipment as quickly as possible. But also from a business owner, though, I feel for some of those guys like that's a tough spot to be in where you've got all this equipment that you've already purchased and you're planning on you've got this you're budgeting how long the life of that equipment is, when you're going to be able to recoup that expense, and they're being told, oh well, next year you can't use it anymore. I don't care if it still works or not. It's it's done. It's a tough spot.
Yeah, it kind of makes me think of the movie Die Hard, one of my favorite movies of all time, right? And what
Christmas movie.
Yeah, it's a Christmas movie. You're absolutely right. And to those that want to argue, then go ahead and feel free to step in
It's
at
the
any
most
time.
ridiculous thing you've all said all night.
One of the important things about that movie is it's like when the FBI comes in, remember, and they cut the power. And that's their plan. We just cut the power. And then we're going to sweat them out, right? Remember what they say, we're going to sweat them out and then they're going to come running, and that didn't end up working for them. But it reminds me of that because if you just stop the source of the equipment, that is ultimately going to fix the problem that you have. And their problem is noise. The problem is emissions. The problem is whatever it is that's out there. And if they just stop manufacturing the equipment, which is exactly what they're doing, they are phasing out that equipment. There's not going to be that equipment's just not going to be in existence anymore.
I
And
think that's a good opportunity for companies to be retrofitting the gas equipment to swap it to electric. I mean, I fully agree. I mean, what do you do with all this gas equipment when you can't use it anymore? I think the smarter option would be to retrofit, be able to take that gas engine out and put in an electric replacement. And I mean, that cuts down massively on waste.
yeah,
From the business owner standpoint, though, they've already spent money, and now they have to spend more money to retrofit. So unless that's being covered by tax dollars, that's why I think what Stephen was saying is that if you cut it off at the source, make the manufacturers not be able to produce the gas equipment, then as people are buying new equipment, they're forced into the battery, which we're seeing now that the experience is better with the battery equipment anyway. But I think the issue is that these other business owners are being forced to buy equipment they weren't prepared to buy. They've already put out their cash for and built a business model around a certain piece of equipment. And then you tell them they can't use it anymore. I think that's where it gets really tricky.
yeah,
Yep, especially for the shorter timelines.
I think the manufacturers should make something a little bit more competitive to gas pricing as well, and then let the business owner, buy their fuel. Right. So maybe they'll have dealers with lease batteries, right? Where you can probably have, a couple batteries that you lease off of a manufacturer or something similar, right? Because if I come to you and tell you my new electric mower is going to cost $5,000, but it's going to cost you $5,000 a year to lease the batteries from us, that's the same price you're paying now for a gas model, right? $5,000 out the door, and then you
That
lease.
means they got to stand behind their batteries, though.
Huh? Yeah, but that's that. Even if you don't stand behind your batteries, right? The fuel is supposed to be gone in a year, right? Your fuel
yeah,
costs, right? Right. Think about it.
yes,
Just if you could just turn that around and just sell, like if it come, maybe this is too much for the podcast to air, but just imagine if I sell you a $5,000 mower with no battery, and then I'll lease you the battery, right? And you swap it out every year, or you come to the shop and, whatever. You have multiple batteries that you can just swap out, make quick connects. Then that person feels like they got a cheap mower and they're just paying for fuel every month for $4.99 a month. They got themselves a battery.
Yeah, that'll make people feel more comfortable. I think a lot of people are just afraid of that. I mean, I pay for, my lease with Oso. You could argue that, you can buy that mower and the battery for cheaper than what I would lease it for the whole year. But there's something to be said about that peace of mind that, hey, they're gonna swap out my batteries, they're gonna take care of my parts, they're gonna, that 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 downtime, you know, fear of being going down. It's really expensive if my mowers don't work, right? If I'm making
Right.
$1,200 a day, and then that mower is down for a day, well, how expensive is it then, right?
Yeah.
And so,
1,200 and plus.
right. So yeah, so that's that. I like the way you're thinking there, and I think that's
Yeah,
what
because
when I spoke with Oso initially, that's what their thought process was, making it easy for the guys to
I
come in
think
and transition.
yeah, I think you sell the equipment and you subscription out the fuel, like gas, right? That's what I would think, and then that way your price is very competitive to a gas mower, and then your fuel, it can be interchangeable really quickly for those gas guys to. One, we don't have tax dollars paying for it, right? Because that eventually comes out of our pockets or everybody's pockets. And then two, you find a solution for everybody to win. Everybody's winning in this situation. It's a win-win across the board. Gas guys feel like they get, a cheaper mower. They got their fuel monthly expense that they already needed to get anyways. If they need more fuel, they just go buy more fuel, just like they
And then
would.
I'm gonna get a cheap battery and wire it into that thing, and it's a
That's fine.
win-win-win.
That's a fine. It's a win-win for everybody. But you see what I'm saying here is that you take the responsibility back to the manufacturer, and then the city telling the manufacturers we just need to have a fuel plant of batteries. One, to make it easier for us to jump into it, and then however many batteries you need, you just cost that based on that fuel cost. Now I don't have a $40,000 mower, right? That I got to go put in on my books today and then try to pay it off in the next 5 years or whatever, 6 years. And you're like, damn, I don't have enough money to buy 10, $40,000 mowers to fulfill my whole trucks.
But that's primarily on the business side of it. I guess how would that affect the residential side of the business? Because I think ultimately
I
that
think
is what
residential, you just sell nothing but that in Home Depots and Lowe's, right? But for
sell
commercial
nothing but what?
electric mowers for your
Well,
home,
yeah,
for your home guys, right? For prosumers, if that's something that the city wants to do. But for commercials, if you're trying to force their arms, you got to come up with a solution. Not just say you can't use gas mowers
I think
tomorrow.
the
hmm
homeowner part is already sewed up. I think that ship
Yeah, I
has
think
sailed.
I see most of these homeowners with Ryobis, like 6 batteries, are just swapping them
It's in
out, and
there.
they're cutting their grass.
Yeah.
It's and the homeowner's not worried about, if that person's not worried about their time, they will spend 2 to 3 hours cutting their yard,
The
no
the
problem.
big part
Uh,
that we're missing in this whole thing is it still takes infrastructure and it still takes charging solutions. So you can look at, okay, buying a battery or leasing a battery is leasing the fuel, but it's really not. It's more like leasing the fuel tank. You're still going to need to charge these things up on a daily basis. You're still going to need that infrastructure. So that's where, when I've had conversations with bigger companies that's talking about doing that, that's their biggest concern. Okay, I got a fleet of 27 trucks. Right now we're just all in the soil yard. Like, where where do I plug up all these batteries? Where do I plug up all
hmm
these trucks,
I think those are easier situations with of infrastructure, depending on what they're doing. But a lot of the infrastructure can be set up a little easier, and that's where the city can probably come in and help a little bit if that's a solar infrastructure, or if that's um, something similar to that in their areas, because that's already a thing, right? You go buy solar for your business, you get a tax credit on that already. But I think they're more scared. They're treating these like electric cars, thinking that they're gonna have like 40 or 50 electric cars plugged into one outlet, but it's not necessarily true. So that's something that maybe they need more education on, and go from there.
Well, and what I was gonna say is, you know, we're talking about kind of decentralizing the batteries, right? So take it away from every company's trying to engineer their own batteries and everything. And then I think Dan and William from SUS, they're kind of light years ahead of us, and they're already been talking about decentralizing the charging systems. And how can we make this charging system for any battery, and work for that? And I think that's what really I don't know. I think maybe TOA is working on that.
Yeah,
But
Toa actually I think has the leasing program that I'm speaking of, but with their battery banks, I believe, in California, where you can go in and swap the battery for a fully charged one, and then it's like in a nesting pot. Which that's what I was getting with Jarmar is you can do the same thing if you can have solar panels charging a backup one, and every day you're just swapping them out, just like ABC, right? So if you have one in the shop, and when you get there, the sun charged that one, you come back and just swap them out as you're going through it. So you're not really using multiple batteries charging overnight. They're just charging throughout the day as it moves on. As the guys come in, they can just grab that new battery, put it in their truck, like refueling, and then move on with their day, right? If they have batteries for all day runtime, which we got to make it easy for that to be on and off, and some other logistics. But I haven't seen a production mower out there that makes it easy to replace the batteries like that.
Ego's new commercial mower will run off of 4 40 amp hour batteries that can just pop in and out.
There are units out there coming where you can swap them out, right? Where they're setting it up to where you can kind of swap through. But I would like to see your idea fleshed out a little further, because I think I like the idea. It's just like kind of fueling up. I still think it's going to be on us as business owners to lead the way. Governments aren't known for their innovation, right, and forward thinking. Usually there's somebody that's doing something well and then showing them that it's doing it well and it's working, and then they kind of come and piggyback on things. We see this in the electric car industry. I think we're going to see this in this industry where, Tesla's been changing the game for the whole industry, and all of a sudden people want to get on board and give you, oh, look at what we're doing. We're pushing electric vehicles. Like, this was going to happen anyway. And like Steven said, this is going to happen anyway. The manufacturers are loving it. And what's happening is the new players like Ego, like Greenworks, that are coming in fully battery. They're all the way on committed. They are pushing the rest of the industry to either get down or lay down, and they are kind of running from behind and trying to catch up. Now, with that being said, we got some behemoths out there, and I think they are catching up. But that's the way the industry is going to have to go. Somebody's going to have to show this thing working, and then I think from there we will see our governments maybe get in line, but it'll likely be after the ship is already, the momentum is already heading that direction. They'll just piggyback on it. And some politician will say, hey, look at me, look at what I'm doing, look at what I did, even though it was already going down. The one thing I will say from our perspective, and let's be in a good position to capitalize on that when it does happen. Because it will happen in everybody's jurisdiction. It's gonna happen. Let's prepare ourselves. If you're listening to this podcast, prepare yourself. Quit being like these other cats out there and being in denial. Sticking your head in the sand, it's not gonna help you. Not this time around. Right? Get yourself knowledgeable, get yourself ready. And this is the way the industry is going. And come on, let's get to it.
That's good stuff. Thank you very much, gentlemen. It's Electric Lawn Talk. And remember, always be charging.
ABC.
Let's go.
Thanks for listening to Electric Lawn Talk. Don't miss the next episode. Be sure to subscribe, and while you're at it, help spread the word by leaving a rating and review.